friends, welcome back to incredibly useful exercises for the double bass, where we condition specific aspects of our performance in short, stolen moments. Thanks for joining me today for an exercise I developed after my study of Caroline Emery's excellent book, Bow Works. In this exercise, we explore the 4 basic motions of string crossings across 2 strings and the dangers inherent in an overly active wrist motion. Let's study string crossing curves. I want to thank Joey Nager for his generous support of this series. Joey has been my go-to luthier for over 5 years. He sculpted my fingerboards buzz-free on both my 1850 English orchestra bass and my solo bass, making them so easy to play, and his tone work on my basses keeps them sounding full, free, and beautiful. Many professional working bassists throughout Texas rely on Joey for fixing and maintaining their treasured instruments. The Joey Nager prize-winning basses are also wonderful instruments. Please visit Joey's website listed below, and if you happen to be in the Houston area, pay him a visit to play his basses and to see how he can improve the playability and tone of your instrument. String crossing curves are 4 minutes long with a high control rating of 4, mindfulness and expression are 3, and the rest are 0. We play string crossing curves for the development of string crossings that are efficient, effortless, and tension-free, and to eliminate any unnecessary forearm twisting motions that cause unwanted sounds on uneven volumes during string crossings. Before we start, I highly recommend you buy the revolutionary book by Caroline Emery called Bow Works. For my learning, it's the biggest bass pedagogical breakthrough in the last decade, at least. The link's in the description. I need to say first that I wrote this exercise on the D and the A strings, because if you're playing the incredibly useful exercises at this stage, chances are that you already know how to play the bass pretty well. However, it's important to know that beginner and young bassists need to study the bow curves first on the D and the G string, not on the A string. So I wouldn't recommend this exercise for beginners. Caroline's book is much more appropriate. In her book, Caroline states correctly that one of the biggest problems with early childhood string education is that the student moves too fast with poor bow motions too soon, leaving room for bad habits to creep into a player over the next formative years of their development. And Caroline has decades of top professional players to show that her approach is the right way to go. So bow tuners look like this. And then the second line. They're basic string crossings, slow and steady. In string method books, these are the first pages that beginners see. I saw them, and I, along with most string players I know, gloss over them without a thought because they look really easy. But I never realized until just 3 years ago that every possible string crossing across 2 strings can be described in 4 shapes. It seems a little too simple to be true, but it's absolutely correct. So realize we don't play this exercise for the notes. We play them for the shapes we make between the notes. So let's look at the first 2 lines. In these lines, I introduce the 4 shapes of string crossings that Caroline Emery calls curves. The first line is the small curve, which happens when you change strings from an up bow to a down bow. I'll flip the camera angle here so you can see the curve both from my angle and from your point of view. So this is curve number 1, starting up bow on the high string. And curve number 2, starting up bow on the low string. Both of these curves are small angles played on the odd lines in this exercise. The curves on the second line are big curves, round sweeping curves which happen when you change strings from a down bow to an up bow. This is curve number 3, starting down bow on the low string. The first 3 curves aren't too problematic, but the next one, curve 4, oh boy, can be a serious problem if it's introduced too soon or introduced without care. This starts down bow on the high string. If we don't work our arm correctly on the curve 4, we'll have all kinds of coordination and tone problems, especially crossing to an up bow on the E string, closest to the body. Have any of you teachers ever seen this frustrating arm motion in your bass or cello students, where they pull the elbow into the arm and then make it go crooked? I certainly have. For the teachers, I encourage you to start looking for where curve 4 exists in your students' lessons and pieces. I think you'll be wonderfully surprised to find that a lot of bow problems happen with this curve. Again, check out Caroline's book and see how she takes a long time to introduce it, and not until the other curves are mastered. 4 curves in total, 2 small, 2 big, and curve 4 needing your extra attention. There's one technical consideration when doing these curves. Don't twist your wrist during the string crossings. Instead, focus on crossing strings by opening and closing your wing, keeping your wrist perfectly still and keeping a straight line between the elbow, fingers, and bow. I point this out from personal experience. This was a technical flaw that I practiced into my arm for about 20 years before someone pointed it out to me. So after that, it took me about a year to unlearn it. Now it's something I notice commonly in all string players. I see their wrist turn like turning a doorknob. That's why I call this doorknobbing. So here are string crossings with doorknobbing. And string crossings without doorknobbing. Remember that one of the definitions of good technique is no wasted or unnecessary motion. Doorknobbing is both of those, so keep your arm still. Here's how we play string crossing curves. Small curves happen from up bow to down bow, and big curves happen from down to up. During the string crossing, keep the right wrist still, no doorknobbing. Cross strings by opening or closing your shoulder. Keep your right pectoral muscle turned off during all string crossings and bow turns. And lastly, the right arm will behave exactly in the same in all positions and with all fingerings. If it feels weird in 4th position, just play it in 1st position to remind yourself of how it should feel. So before I play, I plan my recovery strategy, because once I start, I don't let any mistake or fatigue stop me, just like in live performance. No doorknobbing. I know my wrist will want to twist in string crossing, so most of my attention will be on keeping my forearm and wrist still. If it twists, I won't worry about it. I'll keep on going, and I'll work to keep it quiet. Okay, deep breath. 2, ready, play. and that is string crossing curves. Two of my favorite pieces to analyze with string crossing curves are the overture to the opera Der Meistersinger and the second movement of the Dittersdorf Concerto. These are generally simple but profound applications of the bow curves. I've diagrammed the curves in the music with curve 4 marked in red. When I'm away from the bass, I practice these bow movements in the air like a conductor. It won't fix everything, but it does help. And it especially helps me on curve 4, and it helps me see it and bring my focus to a string crossing which I now know to be inherently problematic. I've always loved the overture to Der Meistersinger. It's only mezzo forte and is one of those excerpts that allows us to play a simple, beautiful tone. This section has 12 string crossings, with 4 of them being curve 4. So that's where I'm going to bring my attention to my right wrist. As a teacher, when someone plays Meistersinger for me, the curves allow me to add another diagnostic tool to explore for solutions. If the player consistently has trash in their sounds after crossing strings from down bow to up bow, it's a good guess that it's due to an overly active wrist. The Dittersdorf Concerto has this beautiful melody in it with a run of consecutive string crossings. The number one problem I see in players who play this is a very active right twisting doorknobbing wrist. The 4 instances of curve 4 in red are usually where the tension really explodes. This is mostly in 4th position, so fairly simple in the left hand, which makes it vitally important that you devote as much attention as you can to keeping the right forearm and wrist still. And one last time, go buy Bowworks by Caroline Emery. Caroline's study of string crossing motions has been so wonderfully helpful from my playing career pretty late in my career. And I love championing it by encouraging teachers, beginners, intermediate, and advanced players to check it out. Playing through those exercises by yourself and with your students will make a profound difference in how you understand and execute the choreography of your bow arm. Thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you find string crossing curves as useful for your performance as it has been for mine. I present this in the way that I've used and benefited from it, and I never intend to say that it's the only way to practice or approach this concept. You can adapt these ideas to your style of curiosity, conditioning, or teaching. Practice this and all exercises in this series in short, stolen moments, or incorporate them into your regular conditioning routine. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, and leave any questions, comments, observations, success stories, or suggestions below. Please check out the incredibly useful exercises series of workout books available in paperback and ebook on the Amazon site in your country. I look forward to you joining me next time. Thank you, and be well, friends.